Apologize for some reason. For some reason, it signed me out. So give me 2 seconds. It's loading. Okay. We're good to go.
I'm assuming I'm up then. Call to order the Community and Economic Development Committee meeting at 5:33. The first item on the agenda is a discussion about the restaurants downtown or Main Street, Ravenna, and Julie is here to talk with us.
Yes, hi, good evening, everybody. Nice to see you all. I met with the mayor and Andrew and Ryan last week. We were talking about the restaurants in the downtown district and what they need from us in regards to what will help them better sell at capacity. The majority of the businesses or the restaurants downtown, when they open up, are only most likely going to be allowed to be at 25% capacity or less. And in talking to them, the majority of them do, all of them want to set up outside seating. Megan's Family Restaurant is actually setting up some picnic tables in the Ravenna Township Park there next to the Salvation Army. Of course, Guido's will have their outdoor seating area. Susie K's will also have some tables out front, as does Icy Blast, and Tavern 1888 would like to have some tables outside as well. Some of the questions that they have, though, is they want to make sure that they are actually allowed to have tables out on the sidewalk without having any permanent fencing at this point, given the nature of what's going on currently. We talked about that, and we're hoping that we can get anywhere from give them permission to have anywhere from 4 to 10 tables spaced at a social distance on the sidewalks out front of their businesses, or even running into the fronts of some of the businesses next door to them with permission by those business owners. So that is what we talked about on Friday. We're finding that through a small survey that I did last week that about 70% of the respondents to the survey, I'm sorry, here it is. My desk is a mess, so bear with me. About 73% of the respondents of the survey said they would prefer to eat outside versus eating at a social distance inside. So I think in order for us to do this, we need to make sure that everybody is in agreement that we can do it, and give them the parameters to which they can do it. That's okay with everybody.
I'm fine with it. My only question is, have we checked with the health department on what their guidelines are as far as what their requirement is? Because I think it's more so from them than it is us in the city. That's just my opinion. As far as, the distances between the tables, is there guidelines from the health department on that? I mean, I'm for whatever we need to do to help them. I just want to make sure, that the health department is the one, kind of giving the plans, not so much us.
Right, and I have reached out to the health department to talk to them about that. But I have not been able to have a conversation with them yet in regards to that. However, the restaurants are working. They know that they have certain parameters that they have to meet in order to maintain social distancing and that sort of thing. And of course, they're going to continue with their carry out and takeout service as well. So I will be in contact with the health department to see what, if what we're suggesting is okay with them, and we can certainly let you know that.
Yeah,
one
that
of
would
the
be
other-
the first, I think. The health department would, I think their opinion is more important, because whether what we say or not, they could shut it down. They have, I think, precedence over us.
I
Is that
know.
right, Andrew?
So, Julie, I have a question. Are you talking about serving people on the sidewalks? Or are you talking about takeout so people can go find a place to eat? Because I think there's a big difference.
There is a big difference, and I'm talking about serving them meals so they have the ability to eat outside. And one of the other things that we would also like to do that I talked to Frank and Andrew about is give them the opportunity to have other seating areas around downtown, like picnic tables on the square.
Is that something Main Street is going to do? Julie, is that something that you on Main Street is going to provide tables? Or what are you talking about?
Well, we had talked about that on Friday. We're looking into the possibility of the city helping us out with that, with maybe 4 to 6 picnic tables that are lighter weight, to see if that is something that people will take advantage of if they want to eat downtown, they want to enjoy the beautiful weather. And where we're going to put them in the square to start to see what the response is, to see
I would think,
people are taking advantage of them.
yeah, it's hard to do with the Zoom because it's hard to, there's like a bit of a, and I don't mean to cut you off. It's hard to tell
I know.
when you're stopping and not. So, but I would think is personally, the restaurant area would be the point that I would concentrate on. I don't know that I would be putting them all through town because then you're going to be encouraging people to congregate. If they're there to eat food and, want to eat outside at the restaurants, which I think is a good thing, that would be something I would be more in favor of than starting to spread picnic tables around our downtown.
Well, we're not, we're going to make it very clear with signage and everything like that, not to encourage people to congregate, but to have us have an ulterior place to dine downtown that is just there for them to enjoy the downtown district. We are also going to limit them as far as the number of people. We're suggesting that they follow the social distancing guidelines as well as the group guidelines, and cleaning up after themselves, et cetera, et cetera. We plan to do customized signage that suggests that dining is available between 11 a.m. and 7 p.m. on a daily basis, and some other things that we're going to do. We're hoping that we can also incorporate some downtown self-guided mural walks and some other social distancing activities that people can do now that people are allowed to be outside. But of course, we're not asking people to congregate because we obviously can't have them congregate.
Julie,
gonna-
if I could hop in, this is Kay.
Okay.
When you were speaking of the restaurants, like waiving the fencing requirement at this time, I think the only place there might be an issue would be 1888 if people were drinking alcohol. I think that would be a no-no outside
Right.
on the sidewalks without fencing. But
Right.
that's the only restaurant I think that would that would involve.
Right. I also spoke with the West Main Street Winery, and I know that they are not allowed to open currently at the same time that the restaurants are opening. And they are actually in touch. They're working on getting in touch with the liquor board to find out what exactly that might entail for them to have seating outside in the back where they plan to build their deck. So they have to figure that part out. As far as Sandy's Tavern 1888 is concerned, I think if we ask her to put no alcohol beyond this point at her front door, whether, that the people who dine outside, you know, they have to make them very, very aware that alcohol is not allowed out on the sidewalk without a permanent fence. In the meantime, if she chooses to, and I'm not sure where she's at with that permit for the fencing, the permanent fencing, but that could be something that she could continue to pursue with you guys.
I have a
I
question
have a
regarding.
question also. I'm sorry, Christine, go ahead.
Okay, the fencing, not even just having tables out on the sidewalks. People still have to do business downtown. And as much as I think it sounds like a great idea to have an eating area, but is it going to be accessible for people to get through to be able to access the courthouse and other resources that are down there? Because I know there's a lot of people that are still moving around downtown, and I wouldn't want, you know, a table or someone eating to block that.
I
Especially
don't
if
think it
someone.
would at all. There shouldn't be
Okay.
any reason why anything would be blocked. We would make
Okay.
sure of that because we only want 4 to 6 picnic tables.
I don't think 4 to 6 tables would fit 6 feet apart in front of Tavern 1888.
No,
No, they wouldn't.
no, not in front of, the restaurants would have to have their own tables outside.
Okay.
Their outside tables, whatever they have. I'm talking picnic tables in the square only.
And
Let
who
me
would
throw
be
this
responsible for
idea.
the cleanup? The
Let me
litter.
throw this idea out.
I'm sorry,
Okay.
Go ahead, Bob.
try again,
Oh.
Bob.
Why don't we block off Parkway north of Main Street for tables?
Well, because that is a very highly used alley.
For
And as
Guido's.
much as I
That's a
love
setup.
that,
That's
you know,
a
that's-
setup.
it's a
by the
beautiful
way.
idea.
No, and that is
Bob's
something that should be
joking.
done.
I hope you're joking.
No, well, sort of, but this is a perfect opportunity for a restaurant to take advantage of this. But as Amy or Christina, it was Christina that said, I do have concerns blocking the sidewalk with tables for bicycles and
Wheelchairs.
folks to walk by, especially if they're side by side. Wheelchairs too, there's trees and fire hydrants and sort of thing. But the other item that I know I've talked to another business owner about is blocking off Cherry Way north of Main Street. It's a perfect alley to block off. We don't have utilities through there. It can easily be temporarily blocked off. I'm gonna guess it's 30 feet wide and probably at least 100 feet long from the sidewalk to the back corner of the building.
Is that the one over by Moksha Yoga? Is that the
No,
alley?
Cherry Way.
Yeah,
Cherry
yeah, that would be it.
Way would be to the
Yeah.
east of.
Yeah, that would be it, Bob,
I've never heard of
by
that.
the yoga
So-
place.
Okay.
Yeah,
Really?
that actually was the alley that I was going to suggest. If you felt that an alley needed to be closed, or you know, suggested that would be a good one because that one is not highly used by vehicles at this point.
Would
The
the
other one-
city-
The other one we could live without also. Park
Julie,
Avenue or Parkway we can live without. Go
would
ahead,
the
I'm done.
city be the ones providing the picnic tables? Or would they be coming from us? Like our parks, or where are you talking about getting these when you said the city would help you?
Well, I talked to Judy and she said that wouldn't be possible because you guys have very heavy picnic tables and you have a limited
do.
number.
That
Yeah.
is correct.
Right, and in talking to Frank on Friday, he suggested that the city could help with that. If they were not heavy duty, if they were easily movable.
So would they be coming from the Parks Department? Is
No.
that where would they be coming from?
We would have them made. We would look
Oh.
into finding wood at maybe Habitat or someplace
Okay.
and have somebody make them.
I had a couple questions also that I wanted to get in there.
Sure.
We talked some about the sidewalks, and I agree with the comments about passage, that we need to make sure that we can get through on the passageway. Are there any requirements in our code or in our regulations for the city on passage on the sidewalks? What it should be a minimum amount, how people could get through? We also talked about fences, and we're saying, yeah, this has to have a fence or that doesn't have to have a fence. who regulates that and why? And how is that actually regulated? I guess I have a question about that. And if we do get the picnic tables put up in random spots, which could be a good idea, it might be okay, who cleans up and how do we maintain them in those areas?
Mhm.
Would
Well,
that be Main Street? I mean, would that be your job and your board, Julie, since you guys are the ones promoting this?
well, this would be a collaboration between the city and Main Street, Amy. So we would have to, we of course would, talk to and try to recruit volunteers and committee members to help with that. But I think, with the city trash cans around town that are routinely serviced anyway, we would all have to just make sure that they're not overwhelmed, which I really don't think they will be initially. I think people are really going to come out slow, but the whole idea is to help them start to feel safe coming downtown with alternatives to help these restaurants make sales. And if people don't want to eat inside, they can sit around and look at the beautiful downtown district, enjoy some murals, take in some history and those sort of things. And so Main Street is also putting together some activities like I said, with this self-guided mural walk. If people want to walk a 2-mile route after they eat and look at murals, they certainly could do that.
And I'll hop in real quick.
And that sort of thing.
I apologize because my video froze for a while, so I couldn't hop in. But as we were talking on Friday with the mayor and Julie and myself and Ryan from the chamber, I thought it was a better idea to bring it to council and see if there was any ideas on what we could do to support the downtown business, with those restaurants and some of the ideas. And I apologize if I'm repeating what Julie said. Outside of Tavern 1888 was to really, without the permanent fencing, and Dr. Calfee, I'll answer your question here in a second, but to recreate really what was at Guido's across the street. So it's nothing that is a huge picnic table in front of Tavern 1888. It would be, a 2 or 4 seated table, the very square tables replicating what they do there. All in opening that up for options for those downtown businesses for them to provide those tables. And that was one of my questions: who provides the tables? So the business, to my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, a business like Tavern 1888 would provide the table, a small one in front of their business. And that could be recreated with Megan's and other places within the downtown area. In addition to that, we got into the conversation of maybe we could identify places around the city with some of these lightweight picnic tables. And the mayor suggested maybe you test that out in front of the courthouse and just do a couple. And providing, as Julie was saying, providing signage, kind of laying out, it's your responsibility. You're taking on whatever risk is associated with sitting at this table in the public. You're responsible for cleaning up after yourself. You're responsible for, sitting here and staying, socially distant. Maybe it's just a family that's sitting there with 4 or 6 people. But, it should be just the family. So that was some of the things that we were talking about, and then bringing it to council to have a larger discussion. And maybe Finney, if you could correct me if I'm wrong on Tim's question on the permitting. But as we were having the discussion, it was, if there was a permanent fence, that would be a thing to go before planning. And there was already a process in place if they wanted to do that. If this is a temporary structure, it would be a permit that they would have to get and would have to be approved,
Right.
kind of side by side with that. And maybe I don't know if it's, one by one, these businesses, or if this is, since it's an outlier situation, if we do them all together and create parameters around it. Again, this was just to have a larger discussion around how we support those businesses if they're only able to bring in 25% of their clientele.
Right. And one of the other things that we wanted to do was to create a map of establishments that have outdoor eating. And that would also not only include the downtown district, but also those businesses on East Main, any of the restaurants really that have outdoor seating available. So people will see that, you know, these restaurants are doing these kinds of things. So, you know, we were going to include those couple of locally owned restaurants out there on East Main, Mimi's and Siciliano's, if they are going to do it, I don't know, because they're mainly takeout anyway. And any other restaurant that's interested in being on the map with their outdoor seating information and what they offer.
I think it's great to put in front of the restaurants. I'm not sure I'm for putting them out around the courthouse as of yet. I
Okay.
guess I would like to see that's just my opinion. I would like to see, you know, what the response is with them around the restaurants. I think, you know, because then the restaurants can control. I'm just concerned on what is going to happen, who's going to be using these tables around the courthouse and how they're going to be maintained. And I don't know. I'm just a little concerned with that. That's just my opinion.
And
And
as far as
also
the-
in front of the courthouse, there have been various times where there's been a fair amount of loitering of the
Mhm.
seating that's there, where if
Absolutely.
it's centralized in front or very close to in front of the dining establishments, that would be far easier to control and almost
Correct.
eliminate any type of loitering or people just laying on those types of tables, even though they would be much smaller than a regular size picnic table.
Right, right.
So,
Because as far as putting the tables on the courthouse or in an alley, who would be responsible then if there was an issue there? Or my concern is our law enforcement spread thin anyways.
Yes.
The last thing we want to do is have to have them respond to, you know, a group of 20 hanging out on the courthouse lawn and having to break that up when they have other things to do.
Yeah.
So, you know, maybe try it in a
Yes.
phase and see what happens
Exactly.
first.
Right, right.
That's exactly what I think too, Christina. I think you're
Mhm.
right.
Yeah, and we can always survey people and see, you know, exactly what they think, you know, if they think it is something that would be worthwhile. You know,
Well, I don't know. The survey is going to show who's actually going to be using it and how it's going to be maintained. A lot of people can say, oh yeah, that sounds like a great idea. But in reality, a lot of surveys are those people are going to be the ones actually participating. And are those people going to be the ones who are actually enforcing?
mhm, mhm.
so I want to weigh in again. I really wonder about the viability of extending services outside a business's front door and waiting on tables. I mean, I understand if somebody wants to buy food and go find a place to eat, and we want to make that happen in more abundance, that's okay with some of the concerns that other people have raised also. But number one, I mean, is this to get around the 25% occupancy rate? Because whether they're outside or inside, does that matter? That's one question. And then two, if we're just going, I mean, are we just going to turn a blind eye? Are we going to sit here today and say we're not going to enforce our codes? Are we going to pass legislation to change it? I'm not exactly sure what we're supposed to be doing here. It's one thing to have a conceptual idea of how to help businesses, and I'm all for that. It's another thing for us as a body to just endorse not, enforcing our regulations, and then maybe enforcing them for one business because they have more space in front, but not for Tavern 1888. I think we, conundrum about what exactly we're doing, as a responsible body here. So the music to enhance my soliloquy here. So anyway, I just want to know what we're being asked to do, or the expectation.
Hey, Paul, I think that's you on your end.
You might want to have mute it, Paul.
He is muted.
It was my understanding that there wasn't a percentage limitation, that it was just a social distance limitation set upon by the state. So as long as everybody was following the guidelines and they were 6 feet apart, you could utilize as much space as you wanted. So I don't know if it's technically getting around that percentage, because there really wasn't a percentage that was presented.
Yeah,
Well,
I
if
don't
you-
know what that is. I'm just saying, I'm asking that question because
Julie, is that kind of right? Go ahead.
Well, if you think about it, if a restaurant has to eliminate tables to make sure there's 6 feet between tables, they're eliminating a lot of potential business. So the alternative is to allow them to put those tables that they're eliminating inside outside. So people have an option to dine outside and still come to their favorite restaurant.
And still have to follow the social distance guidelines.
Well, yeah, they would be socially distanced outside as well. But being outside is, you're out in the fresh air. So
Sure,
I guess,
sure.
I guess it's less of a threat. So that's one of the reasons why we're interested in helping the restaurants be able to do this.
Well, my
And
point is,
they would be responsible for their tables, bussing their tables and making sure that they are taken care of. They probably would have to take some of them in every night, and that would just be part of it.
but that's my point. I mean, the idea is to circumvent the limited space they actually have. Supplement
Yes.
with city space, because they don't own the sidewalk in front of their building.
Well, that is correct. It's with city space
So
because
that's why
what
I'm
they
saying,
have.
if this were to happen, I think we have to take some sort of action. We have
Good.
to
I mean,
enact
there's,
some sort of, go ahead, Cheryl.
I'm all about outdoor patio eating anytime. I'm the first one that's there. But we have policies and procedures in place for our zoning codes and any other business that has wanted this in the past. I know there's been some that have been denied because of where they were located or the amount of space that, was needed and things like that. I don't think that we can change our codes just because of the current situation. I think that we have to do as best we can to support our local businesses. But if it means disregarding the rules that we have in place, we really have to take a serious look at that.
Well, I don't think I think they should be looked at, because I do think that this is a special situation. Because if these businesses don't get if they don't get the business that they need, we're going to lose a lot more. We've already lost 5 businesses so far in the downtown district because they've closed their doors. And we're going to see more restaurants that'll probably follow suit if that's the case. So what we're doing at Main Street, and we're hoping that the city will, kind of partner with us on this, because we know that there are regulations to help us figure out how they can do it. Not that, no, they can't, we don't want to break our ordinances. Well, what can we do then with those ordinances for this specific situation, maybe for a specific time frame between now and November 1st, when it's too cold to be outside anyway? What can we do to help them help their business stay in business? So that's why I'm here talking to you guys, because I am aware that there are ordinances and there are limited places for these people to have seating. And we were brainstorming and trying to come up with ideas to help them be able to service their customers and keep people coming downtown.
Yeah, I want to make sure you understand that I'm not against the idea. I'm just want to make sure we do it the right way.
I just want to.
And I
I
want it done the right way too. And I
Yeah,
think
okay.
that this is extraordinary circumstances. I mean,
Mayor Seaman, you've been pretty quiet. What opinion, or what do you have feedback wise as far as this goes? But you got to turn your mute off first. There you go.
Also, Chief Wallace, I'd like his input on this as well too.
First of all, people eat lunch every day over on the courthouse square. We have people here. Kay goes over there and eats lunch on occasion. So that's nothing new to the courthouse square as far as that goes. It was at some point, and it may have been changed, but my understanding was the initial opening for these restaurants was they had to serve outside.
Yes.
And so they have no choice if they're going to open.
But it's 6 days. The first 6 days is outside.
right.
We got another item coming up right after this, where we're going to be lending money to people to try and keep them in town. It's easier to keep them to have to find somebody else to replace somebody leaving with this. Right now, we're way behind in the timeline in terms of preparation for this kind of stuff to help with that. And it isn't that we haven't been working on it, it's dealing with a situation we've never faced before and having to do this. I think what we'll do, Mr. Finney and I will take a look at what regulations or ordinances we have that would interfere with this and bring that back to council. But the on this is rather quick in terms of these people opening. In the issue that follows, we're hoping to provide some funds that make it possible for them to survive. But part of them surviving is feeling that they're getting some support. If they don't feel like they have support, they're going to be gone with this. So, and again, I'm not asking to do things outside of the box with this, but sometimes we don't have a law regulating it specifically.
I don't think anybody is like not for this and supporting them. Like I said, the big thing was, you know, putting a bunch of tables over on the courthouse, you know, as well as I do.
First of all,
what goes on.
Pardon me? 2 is not a bunch, and you're very much aware that nobody's more concerned with them being used inappropriately than me. It's one of the reasons we have not put tables over on North Parkway because that was a congregating point. There's been some changes in the downtown area. Riddle Block 9 has been sold, and there is a new owner there, and they are not reopening the cafe. I have no idea what that will do for the downtown. I can't help but think it will disperse some of the issues that we're concerned with. These are things that we're just going to have to work with and do the best we can. And again, I'm not asking anybody to go outside the rules and regulations that we have. We cannot set up a situation where we create liability for the city that we don't need to have with that. We did work it out last year for Tavern 1888 to have a few tables outside the door. And then she did have some a little farther out in the street for a little while that was fenced in. That's the most difficult spot. The other places, Megan's, they have already talked to the township and made arrangements to use that over there, but they're responsible for the cleanup over there. As you go down the street with where we have places that serve food, Sam is all set up. There's nothing that he needs to do. He's got space outside to serve, and he's got plenty of walk-in trade. The
Bean and Baker.
The Bean and Baker is also, they have ample room in front of their place and where they could have a couple of tables. I don't think we're going to be overrun with people, quite honestly.
No,
I don't think so.
Especially initially.
And you got, I think, just as many problems, if not worse, for Vibes. I mean, you know, some of our retail stores, you know, they're trying to barely survive as it is, you know, doing stuff online. I think a lot of the restaurants are being used. I mean, there was a line out the road on Sunday just to go in to pick up a Guido. So I don't think it's really held a lot of people back on these restaurants. People are still getting out there. Honestly, I think the bigger issue is the retail. I think that we're going to lose them.
Right. And part of the reason why we're doing this to make it available for these businesses, these restaurants to have their seating outside is that people have to walk to those restaurants. They may start to walk around downtown and see that retail and go into the retail. So it's kind of that is one of the other reasons why we're doing it, is to kind of help support those retail businesses that choose to be open during those timeframes where people are outside eating. They can certainly put signs outside their business or a rack or something that says, hey, we're having a sale today, or hey, come on in and take a look at what we have. And then they have their own social distancing parameters that they are going to follow, because each one of them, you know, they know that in order to keep themselves safe and to keep their employees safe and to keep their customers safe, they have to have certain protocols in place as well. So it's a win-win for everybody. Yeah, some of the restaurants are knocking it out of the park with their carryout. Some of them aren't doing so well with their carryout. It really just depends. You know, Susie K's has been closed since what, the beginning of March. You know, she's not doing carryout, but if she has the ability to have places for people to sit safely outside, some of her clientele may come back. You know, so there's a lot of things that we have to think about. And if we look at what we can do differently to support our businesses here in Ravenna, then that's going to go a long way in showing businesses who may want to invest in Ravenna that we support our businesses in the downtown district. So that's why, you know, looking at the ordinances, we need to see what's good and what we can kind of work around right now during this time between now and the fall when things get cold again. And hopefully this won't blow up again. So that's my job.
The fastest way would be for city council to pass a resolution, and they could state it as a temporary basis and put any guidelines they would like to on that. Generally speaking, Guido, Susie K, 1888, they all went to planning commission for approval for outside seating. And I believe Dr. Calfee's question, the liquor board can approve serving alcohol on a sidewalk as long as it's fenced in. Sandy wanted her fence to show that something was going on inside of that building. Planning commission approved the fence in the front. They approved the style of fence, and they approved the fence in the back. Same thing, so the liquor control board would approve. Mimi's, same thing. He needed a fence so he could serve liquor outside, and he has. I'm not sure if Guido's did or not, if they serve alcohol, if you can carry a beer outside or not. But anyway, one of the other issues is in front of Sandy's building, or in her place, she's got about 17 feet of sidewalk. Some of these other ones, the ice cream, the frozen ice cream place, they have about 10 feet of sidewalk. Same thing with the coffee shop. They have 11 feet of sidewalk. I believe the ADA standard is a minimum 36 inches that we would have to keep, or that has to be kept clear so a person can pass. So if you imagine a table and a chair on each side, you know, that could encompass 7 or 8 feet. So we're getting real close to the edge of the sidewalk per se. Just things to think about. The slope of the sidewalk also becomes an issue. I know I talked to Patrick Madonio for a couple of years about closing down the alley, trying to get entertainment, getting people outside, especially when Parkway would be the ultimate choice because of the movie theater, because of the courthouse, right at downtown. But if that's not an option, I think Parkway should be considered.
So maybe we could suspend the current ordinances that require whatever they require, fences or whatever. But also, I don't know, I hate to create a bureaucracy, but because there's unique situations for each restaurant, that each restaurant has to apply for and be granted permission to do like set a plan, have it approved before they go forward. If we just make it the Wild West, then yeah, people with wheelchairs are going to end up in the streets, and who knows what a havoc we might create. Mayor, would that work to set up an approval process so that you could make sure that each business is being responsible and how they're implementing this?
Yes, that would work fine. We would be glad to issue permits out of the office here.
Okay. Then the only other question is timing. How quickly can we turn this around?
I don't have a clear answer for that, Rob.
Well, I can hit the ground tomorrow. And
I mean,
talk-
in terms of council
Oh.
approving something.
Yeah.
Before we move forward, I just was curious as to Chief Wallace, what your opinion was on the tables and moving forward with this. I think he might be frozen on my screen.
He's frozen.
There he is. Chief Wallace, can you hear me?
Unmute. He's muted.
Can you hear me?
There you go. Thank you so much. What can you give us some feedback on this before we move forward with it?
To what in particular? I guess
Just-
there was a lot of stuff said. I guess one of the things I look at and I'm hearing is, you know, I look at, we have the food trucks coming all summer long that are down at the library, and they have food, and you know, people right by the sidewalk, and there doesn't seem to be an issue. And I think if, you know, probably this is going to be individual, and I will see what they can and do, but there are alternatives that we can do. Maybe like Megan's has a parking lot, and you open that up, or close off the alley, or there are different options, because there are parking lots, like the parking lot at the movie theater. Is that available to use, where if Guido's wanted to expand and have tables outside to get businesses and as much room to open back for 8 or 9 weeks? And I think as far as this, you know, like the stuff that was out in front of the library, those were all folding up chairs, and they were, you know, put away after each use. So I think that if you had something like that wasn't permanent, you made the restaurants responsible for cleanup as well as the families, I think that would go a long way. But so that's just
Does anybody else have?
overview of that.
Thank you very much. Does anyone else have any questions on any of this?
Thoughts?
I'll just say that if they're full, I have to agree with what the chief just mentioned, because that's a big asset. I have seen how that works at the library, and that's very profitable that way in several different areas.
Right.
That way, when all the tables are picked up, folded away, they're lightweight, if I'm not mistaken, probably made out of fiberglass, and they can be carried in after that event is finished, and that will eliminate, well, I won't say all loitering, because there's been some that have slept in the yards, but that's a different story. But as far as loitering at the tables, that's eliminated when they are put away, as soon as the food trucks have left and people are finished eating.
I do want to say, my opinion, Christina, on this, since I am on the committee,
Absolutely.
would be, you know, first focus on the restaurants before we venture out elsewhere. I think if we, you know, do this quick so that we can help the restaurants that are currently open, that should be our first focus. And then after that, you know, to see how that goes, then, you know, maybe go to the next step of adding extra tables if they're needed. But I think we need to, you know, help our restaurants that are currently open, and whatever we can do as a city to help them. I also feel that if the tables are in front of their place, then they are the ones responsible, which I think they already do now as it anyways. You know, Guido's is always out there, always taking care of their stuff. Of course, it would be new to some of the other restaurants, but I still feel they would do a good job in monitoring that. that's all I have to say on this topic.
So is this something that we want to move forward as to exploring a temporary resolution?
I'm okay with that on what I just discussed.
Anybody else?
Dr. Kelfi, you're on
Dr.
this committee.
Kelsey,
No additional comments.
is this something that you would like to move forward to consider as a temporary resolution?
Sure, it'd be fine.
Does anybody else have anything before we move on to what's next on the agenda? That was a lot. All right, Mayor, you're up next, sir.
Well, this is, we're just asking for the appropriation of the $200,000 to be made available for small business loans that would be handled by NDS. This is something that I talked to you about quite a while ago, where we knew that we were going to have, a lot of these folks were going to have trouble staying open or getting back open. These the first loans that we tried to get approved by the state, we were not successful under the definitions and dealing with HUD. NDS retooled them and converted this to a restart type of loan. So it's for established businesses, not somebody that's ready to start one, but for established businesses. And the state of Ohio, it's a little more involved, and I'm making it rather simplified. Excuse me. Well, I swear I turned that phone off. These restart loans, they're taking applications. It will not just be, our money will stay in Ravenna. The county commissioners have approved money to be used in Portage County, and NDS is putting $200,000 of their own money in. Now, these are loans and have to be repaid, so the money will be reclaimed in the future. The way the RLF funds work, and that's what these are, is that grant money is received and they pay back their loans. A lot of these come from businesses. And when they pay back their loans and we accumulate more money. In that particular account, we have a little over $200,000. So the money is there. NDS is already processing applications with this, and they're going to be using their money until we get ours approved. This is something that we need to do to help the businesses here in town. We've had some very long time successful businesses that absolutely do not have startup cash because of the business that they've lost. Their bills don't stop coming in just because of a business closes. You still have utilities and rent and those sorts of things. I think that this is a good use for this money. It's what it's intended for.
I have a question, Mr. Seaman. What are the eligibility parameters for the businesses for the application process? And also, what are the recapture terms?
It's 2 years. When that loans they're looking at are around $5,000 to $10,000. And they go through a regular screening. You would know better than anybody. Jim Shank is running that portion of the operation out of there and qualifying people for the loans. But the state insisted that these loans are not gifts. If you go online to our website, I had the paperwork posted, the initial paperwork, and you have to call NDS and make an appointment to get it. But if you want to see precisely what it is, go to the web page and it should be there.
Awesome. Thank you.
I had a question. The article in the paper today had some information about it, and I just was curious. The $200,000 that the city's going to come up with will just go to city businesses.
Yes.
And then right now you said that NDS is processing some already. Are they processing it to take out of our $200,000, or are they going to give some loans to people inside the city out of their money?
There'll be some, without a doubt, yes. There will be some outside the city, because keep in mind, people that live in the township are having problems too. Our $200,000 would only go to city businesses.
Does anyone else have any questions regarding this? All right, is this something we are going to move forward then? Yes?
Yes, I'm good with that.
Yes, I'm fine.
All right, well, thank you. Last but not least for me, is there a management update?
I really didn't gather anything together for management updates tonight. I knew we had even though it didn't look like long, I knew it was going to be long.
Well, all good then. We can move forward.
Thank you.
All right, then I'm going to call the Community Economic Development Committee meeting over at 6:24. Who? There you go.
Okay, I'm gonna do mine next. 6:25. I will call Public Health and Safety Committee to order. We have several items on the agenda tonight. First one is the FEMA COVID-19 supplemental grant. And that, I believe, is either going to be the fire chief talking about this, or Mr. Huff. I do want to thank Cheryl Wood for working with the fire department. I know they had called me over the last weekend, and we were just discussing some of these issues. And I did say Cheryl knew a lot about grants, and she was able to go up and kind of talk with them and look at some of the stuff that they've done. So I want to say thank you.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Okay, so who's going to start off the first one? Is that going to be Brian, or is that going to be the chief?
Chief, are you there right now? I think I had talked to Chief about some of this, but I think he was actually the one doing most of the
I saw
application.
him. There he is.
I'm here.
Okay, hi.
Hi.
So the FEMA COVID-19 supplemental grant is on the agenda.
Okay. So what the grant is FEMA appropriated $100 million countrywide for the replacement and future purchases of supplies and equipment that would be needed for COVID-related incidents. We looked at everything as we applied the grant for what we were asking for, what we based on what our usage is right now at today's cost, what would cost us for the remainder of the year. We projected at $48,000, and that's what we put in for the grant for.
For 48,000?
There is 48,000 and some change, but basically $48,000, correct?
Okay, and so you need council's approval to go ahead and go through that, correct?
Correct.
So
And-
what types of articles does that include?
It's all PPE, so it would be gowns, procedural masks, N95s, disinfectants,
Supplies.
right, Tyvek suits and whatnot.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, like Bruce would say, take the money and run. There's no, if we get it, there's no matching on the city, correct?
It is, it's 5%.
There's a 5%
There is a 5%
match.
match. Right.
And Mr. Huff, is that okay, Brian?
Yeah, he had talked to me about this, and that's if we don't get this, or if we get part of this, then we can also apply for the FEMA disaster recovery part too, which that's like that's 75% funded by them. So
Is that something, I mean, are you allowed to apply for both of them? Or do you have to apply for one, get rejected, and then go after that?
There are some limits on the FEMA disaster reimbursement that we can't double dip. We can get funding from one and get funding from the other one too. So if
Okay,
we end up getting this one, then whatever we get, we won't be able to get back on that part.
okay,
But the FEMA disaster reimbursement also covers other stuff like some overtime salaries and other things as well that
Yeah.
would not be included in this one.
okay,
Yeah, the COVID supplement, the supplemental does not cover salary or backfill overtime or anything like that.
it's only
just
for
equipment.
replacement and supplies, correct? Are we gonna go after the salary one for overtime? I mean, was there a lot of overtime that we had as a result of any of this at this point, or were we pretty well still within our budget?
We were within our budget at this time, but again, we're going into the summer months where my staffing is not going to be at 5 or 6 guys per shift. We're going to be down to bare bone minimum at 4. And right now, when we go into these facilities that are COVID positive environments, such as the nursing homes, the assisted living homes, the special need care homes, and even the senior citizen complexes, a lot of those complexes have already been deemed COVID positive through the health department. So when we go there, it basically costs us more manpower to go there to supply the services that we currently are, because guys that are going in those environments have to be in Tyvek suits, mask, gown, glove, all up. And instead of trying to take the risk of cross-contaminating, getting back in the squad to drive, it's more proficient to have somebody drive the squad and have the 2 caregivers in the back of the squad, so somebody's not donning and doffing the gear on the same call.
That makes sense. No, I completely get it. And we don't know with the way things are opening up too. It's kind of scary on, what, kind of numbers we're going to start seeing too. Okay. Is everybody okay with moving this item forward?
Good.
Rob and Matt?
Absolutely.
Okay. Next item is front foyer roof repair at the fire station. I did talk with the mayor about this after we spoke, and he said that was going to be fixed. Is that correct, Mayor? Hello, Brian, maybe you can talk with him.
No, yes, it needs to be fixed. We're spending money to sanitize the place every 2 weeks. And stuff coming through the ceiling, and they got to put a bucket under it. It's not a sanitary situation.
Correct.
So, yeah, we're doing.
How much are we looking to appropriate for this, or is it already in the budget?
Chief, that's around 3,000, isn't it?
Correct. After the budget was finalized, the line where they get the roof fixed, but then after the final budget was passed, they took $3,500 out of the line item itself, which leaves me the roof itself cost $3,000 to get fixed, which would have been the money that was appropriated to begin with.
Okay, so Brian, do we need to you're saying it was taken out of the budget, so now do we need to reappropriate this?
I think we were looking to appropriate this out of the CI 574 fund, the 553 fund. And
She says the CI 65-74.
right. I
Okay.
think originally the chief's talking about it was in the general fund as a separate line. It wasn't specifically for that, but it was, he did lose some money in one of those lines. Apparently from the tax budget last year to the permanent budget when it was.
Right. So that's where I guess I'm trying to figure out where now this money then is coming from the CI or general fund. It's not coming from the general fund. It would be coming from the capital improvement, correct?
That was my recommendation, yes, to put it in the capital fund, yes.
Okay, so that's what the amount is 3,000? I don't have the tracking sheet.
Correct. It's 3,000.
3,000 even.
Okay, coming out of CI for roof repair. Have you already gotten the quote?
I did. I went through, Mr. Finney, contacted the Garland Group, and they're the ones that came out and gave us several estimates through subcontractors. And the contract that we went with was the best price, was just under $3,000.
Okay. All right. And you're comfortable with this, the group that you guys chose, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Rob, do you have any questions, or Matt?
No, go ahead, move it forward.
The roof repair comes with a 10-year warranty as far as materials. What it doesn't cover would be labor in the event that something was to happen down the road. But the materials itself was a 10-year warranty on the material.
Okay. All right, Rob, is that okay if we move this forward?
Yes.
Okay. All right, we'll go ahead and move this forward, Chief. And then we also have on the agenda 4 sets, new hire, turnout gear. So, do you want to tell me this is regarding new hire, the sets for this, or what exactly is this?
Correct. Well, to give you a little bit of the story, we just currently, since we couldn't give a civil service test, we went through the actions of provisionally appointing. That employee still has to take the civil service test and pass it. But we interviewed, we did a proficiency evaluation, and we recommended to provisionally hire an individual, and they accepted the position. The issue is, I don't have the funding. Each person that on duty has to have 2 sets of full PPE turnout gear: bunker pants, coat, helmet, boots, and gloves. I don't have anything that would fit that individual currently, because it's you're measured specifically for your size. So with we offered the one position, but I also have another position that is open currently, unless the issue with Tyler Nichols is resolved. I would need to hire another person and have to fund them with the same equipment as well.
And how much are we looking at for this?
Each set of $20,000 to $2,100.
Say that again, it cut out, I'm sorry.
Each set of gear is roughly between $2,000 and $2,100 per set of gear. So I would need $4,000 per individual.
And the second
that-
set,
and if I'm
we
hiring
don't
two-
know for sure. You're not gonna purchase that other set
I
until
won't
you
purchase
know.
that until I know the final outcome of the situation with firefighter Nichols.
Okay. And let's see what else. So you did hire somebody already, correct?
Correct. He will be sworn in on Friday the 15th.
And can you say who you hired so that we can?
Yes, his name is Nathaniel Barnhart.
Yay. I know him. Good. All right. Okay, great. And that's going to be the 15th?
Correct. He will be sworn in the Friday the 15th at 9:30 in Constant Chamber.
Okay. Great, thank you. I like to hear the information. So if someone's able to attend from council, I think it's great to show support. The other thing, okay, I think we got that. Is there anything else that you wanted to bring up?
Not in regards to the gear.
No, yeah, no. Anything else any other additional
No,
comments
that was
or
the 3
updates?
things that I had. No, those were the 3 topics that I had.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure. Are you okay, Matt and Rob, for moving this forward?
Yeah, move it forward.
Move forward.
Okay, all right, we'll go ahead and move this forward. Any management updates from either Chief Wallace, Fire Chief, or the mayor in regards to anything?
No, we continue to to work with the daily changes that happen with the pandemic. Watching with close interest now that it's starting to open up, the figures, how they're going to go as this goes on. We have been sanitizing the fire department every 2 weeks. That is not cheap, but I'm hoping that that's part of the money that we can recover from FEMA with that. But our firefighters, every time they go out, are subject to being contaminated. They've done a very good job up to this point with avoiding that, but they are thrown into situations sometimes that are taxing, to say the least, with that. But we've been working closely together with both the police and fire, and they've done stellar work up to this point, as we would expect with that. But I'll stop at that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, if nothing else to come before this meeting, I will go ahead and adjourn it. I don't have a clock in front of me because I can't see it on my phone right now. So, okay, that's the time. I'm ending this meeting. Thank you.
Okay, it's 6:38. I'll call the planning committee meeting to order. We have 2 items on the agenda. The first item has to do with the conditional use for halfway houses. Now, is this the same as group homes? Are we giving it a different name?
No, it's the same as group homes. We really didn't finish this up, and we need to. So I'm just asking you to take it back into committee, and we'll work with Mr. Finney and possibly you or somebody, a small group that doesn't constitute a meeting, to try and put this in place so that at least if one is going in, they have to go before the planning commission so that the public gets a chance to voice their opinion when we have a public hearing for it. But this is a piece of that we got fairly far along with it, but then we didn't finalize it.
I recall the law director had some issues and they never got resolved.
Well, I will be talking to him about it. He knows about it at this point. And this is something we need to take care of because
Too many gaps.
yeah, and we're heading into a season, construction season, and when these sorts of things start to pop up, and I think that as a community, we need to have a handle on it. We've been more than fair with taking people in to our community, and I'm not making judgments about them, but some of these things need to be shared with other communities in Portage County and not all end up in Ravenna.
I agree. And I think something like this, the sooner we start moving on it, the better. Just to fill in some gaps and, tighten some loose ends that we did leave out. And so hopefully the law director, Rob, can get in and chime on this as soon as possible.
So Bob, are you proposing the same changes you had before? Because I remember there was some somewhat semantic changes to how many people who are unrelated could live in a home, those kinds of issues.
Well, I think we should do them at the same time. However, what the mayor's specifically referring to would be a business, a company that's going to run a halfway house as a business, even though by definition, a foster home, commercial, I'll call it a commercial foster home, is for business. This type of activity may not be our choice to have in certain zoning districts, such as a central business district. So it's going to go a little further than what I had originally proposed.
Okay, fair enough. If we're gonna do it, we should do it all at one time.
Yeah.
Okay, Amy and Tim, is it okay to move this one forward?
Yeah.
Any more questions?
No.
Okay.
I'm not up to speed on all the issues related to it. I remember some of this discussion was going on prior to the election when I came on board. So I did hear some of the issues and hear it discussed some, but I'm not up to speed on all of them.
Okay, well, go ahead, Mayor.
I'm just gonna say that's why we're gonna have a meeting and assess what we've got and then what's missing. With
Okay.
that.
Keep me in the loop on that.
Okay.
So the next item, something that came up recently, I suppose all of you got the letter from the township regarding the Maple Grove Cemetery. It's put on this agenda. I'm not exactly sure why, but I guess it needed to be on somebody's agenda. So if you have it, and basically it's a resolution asking that the budget for the cemetery be reduced 20%. So I'm not exactly sure. I would have thought that there would be a different approach, maybe a call for the joint township council meeting to discuss this, but they sort of just went ahead and approved this resolution. So I'm not sure who's taking control of it. I mean, I know Andrew had some discussions with the township. You know what I just said, and that's as far as I know. So anybody?
Yeah, this just kind of came out of left field, Rob. We haven't been able to meet the last couple months because of the COVID crisis. So through email, the township trustee on the cemetery board, just out of the blue, decided he did not want the part-time staff to come back. He requested information on what the cost was to pay those individuals for their time at the cemetery. And the number was roughly about $49,000. Why he decided or felt that the cemetery budget needed to be cut is still not totally understood. We've asked him and I feel I have not got a straight answer from him.
I have to agree with you completely on your last statement.
So I requested a meeting with the township trustee, the individuals at the cemetery, their fiscal officer, Paul and myself. So we will be meeting tomorrow at noon at the cemetery to try and get some answers from him in regard to why. Basically, the cemetery runs on the allocated funds from the city and the township, and then they produce roughly another $80,000 for their own budget. Where he believes the shortfall of $50,000 is going to be, I'm not sure. I do know that with cutting 4 full-time or 4 part-time staff out there, the cemetery will never be in the shape that it needs to be in, that it should be in. We're coming out of winter. There's still a lot of limbs, leaves, debris, and the weeds are growing.
Mhm.
And we can't do it with the people they have on staff right now. Because they're involved with burials and other things. So they really rely on these part-time staff to maintain a big portion of the cemetery. So again, this budget cut came out of left field. Myself nor Paul knew about this letter until we received it Saturday. There had been some discussion from the township that they would like to see it cut. And but we didn't know that they were going to try and they were requesting this resolution, and this is a request from them. We obviously don't have to abide by it or agree with it, but I do think we should do our due diligence and look into the budget. I know the cemetery budget has been roughly the same over the last 20 years with minimal increase, if any increases. So it's
got the grant money or the endowment, whatever you want to call it, the bequest to So I don't know how that's gonna fit in with all this.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
that's-
actually outside of the budget
No, I-
that we
I know
approved.
that it's outside the budget. I just don't know how the donor feels about us cutting back at the same time. They're putting money into beautifying.
Right.
I agree with you, Rob.
I agree with that. What was the original budget split between the city and the township for the 2020 budget?
I believe
I-
the city's portion was around 160,000, and the township, I believe, was around 130,000. I don't have the exact number right in front of me, but I think that's fairly close.
You're
And
very,
I don't know the exact percentage offhand either way.
the dollar figures were 158,000 to 129.
Okay.
And,
Pretty good, Matt. Pretty good
Thank
number.
you. And I did, when this came about towards the end of last week, I did sit down with Mayor Seaman, Mr. Huff, and Mr. Moskin, and we did look at the budget, and we did have some conversation, and we were kind of in agreement that we needed to maintain our course and get those 4 part-timers back.
I agree.
At this.
If they don't come back, it's going to look real bad.
So I'm a little confused about the process here because their resolution is requesting that the cemetery board amend the budget. Don't we have a joint township, city council, the whole city council
yes,
per year to approve the budget? So shouldn't the request go to the council, not the board? Is the board empowered to just reduce the budget that we approve?
I think that you're correct. No, I think it would have to be that group come back together.
Okay.
to change this. Yeah, I'm not a lawyer, Rob, with that, but to me, that would make sense. If we approve the budget, then we should have to approve any changes in it.
Yeah, if I believe if it's to be amended, we need to do it in a joint meeting.
I agree.
Yeah, so.
And
the only
the
other-
individual from the township is expecting us to review this and change it without actually going to city council as a whole.
Well, like I said, I think it has to be a joint meeting with all of the trustees and all the council, just like we approved the budget to make an adjustment. The only other question, has anybody reached out to Mark Gabriel to talk to him about this?
I did on Saturday. I called him to see, and he was just as shocked as, when I got that letter in the mail. Because I was curious what was going on. Because I frequent the cemetery at least 3 to 4 times a week. And if I'm up there in the day, I always stop and talk with the guys and, see how they are and just kind of, hear what's going on, some of their concerns. And, they're always busy when I'm up there. And it's been so wet. And I understand that, I don't know what the plans are for Memorial Day parade, but that cemetery is on a lot of people's high priority list.
Yes.
And if we do not do our diligence in keeping that up, we are going to have a lot of upset people. And, Mark Gabriel told me, he has not, I believe, now I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure he had said he has not had an increase pretty much since 1997. And
You're right.
They've cut like $5,000 already. He's like, honestly, there's nothing left to cut. So he's been very diligent about keeping the budget and watching it, so I don't know what else we can possibly do. I think we have to do our diligence in keeping that cemetery to the best of its ability to look like.
Yeah, and I do talk to Mark quite often, conversations with him today. He almost seems like he's in panic mode with these possible cuts. He's already cut He hasn't ordered flowers this year that he usually does.
Right.
He hasn't turned the sprinklers on in the ponds to save money. He hasn't bought grass seed. And some of these violations can come back and he can be fined for some of these things that he was telling me. He hasn't turned the water on. He will just turn the spigots on over the summer when it gets dry for the residents to water flowers, trying to reduce the chance of someone just turning it on and leaving it run. So he seems to be very proactive in cutting the little things where he can. But to take 4 part-timers away and to hack $50,000 out of his budget all at one time, I just don't think it's a good move.
These part-time people have usually come back approximately 4 to 6 weeks ago in the past years.
Right. So the cemetery's already saved maybe $8,000 by not bringing these individuals back because of the COVID right now. So they've already saved a little bit of money by not being able to bring them back. But it is my understanding that there are 2 currently on unemployment that are being paid and are not working, that could be working right now to clean that up. So something else to consider and think about.
Well, my suggestion is to have the cemetery board, and that's obviously you, Matt, and Paul. Whenever you have your next meeting, just say, listen, maybe get some input from Mark Gabriel about the practicality of such a budget cut, and then advise whoever the township representative is that if they want to review the budget, they have to do it with the full council and township, that short circuit this and kind of make us rush through this and get some. I'm not sure, it didn't sound like there's much support for cutting the budget anyway. So if we went that road, it wouldn't do them much good. But I think the proper challenge would be to request a joint meeting. So I don't think there's much for us to do. And Mayor or somebody else, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think the council should be moving this forward.
Yeah, I think this was just for discussion tonight. And like I said, we will be meeting with their township trustee tomorrow at noon, and I will relay that information we will vote at that meeting to bring the part-time staff back
As soon as possible. Yes.
And then if they would like to entertain cuts, to schedule a joint meeting.
Agreed.
All right. Thank you so much, Matt and Paul.
You're welcome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So is there a management update, Mayor?
No, we will go ahead and pursue this. I tried to call Mark today. I was not able to get a hold of him. With that, the other thing is when you do the math on this, we're already 4.5 months into the year, which means if the spending out there, now it's a little more in the summer, but if you're going to knock 20% out, it's really going to, it's going to have much larger impact than 20% on the time that's left, because you were using it full tilt up to this point. And I think to go ahead and have the meeting, and then we'll have to get everybody together if they want to discuss this farther. I think we'll wait and see what happens at the meeting that they have tomorrow.
Yeah, it's foolish to pay somebody on unemployment. I mean, you're just losing the money, rather than coming in and working.
And they want to work.
Yeah, no, I know they do. So I guess why not let them? I mean, you're paying them unemployment, bring them in and let them work.
All right. There's nothing else, then I will adjourn the planning committee meeting at 6:57. I think we're done.
Okay.